This is Alex Becker. Last year, he made over $100 million through selling his company. He credits this to an extensive biohacking routine that has given him peak focus and willpower.
If you just do what I lay out in this video, you will be successful. This is the #1 reason why people are not successful.
But does it really work? Since he started doing this, he's built dozens of businesses, wrote a book, sold his company for 9 figures, and even got 1 million subscribers on the side for fun. And he says all of this was only possible because of his ability to focus and not get distracted. This is probably the most overpowered skill you can learn to achieve anything you want. Imagine you could focus for 8 to 10 hours a day on your goals. How much could you achieve in a year? 10 years. But the interesting thing is, he's not really selling this as a program or anything. His full routine is buried through all these random tweets and videos. But I went through all of that and broke down the 7 key principles that you can implement into your life today to achieve optimal focus. The first principle is to stimulate your entire nervous system when you wake up. And there's a couple ways to do that, but for him, it starts with a full body workout every day, followed by cold exposure or a cold shower. Studies have shown that cold exposure or taking a cold shower can increase your dopamine by up to 250%, which is more effective than many stimulants. And for me, I found one of the best ways is just go for a run right when I wake up. What I do is I take a cold shower or ice bath right after that. He has an extensive biohacking routine that takes 3+ hours, and it includes things like red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, taking 60+ supplements, and also meditation.
Then I have another room over here, which is absolutely nothing in. I kind of call it like my medical room because I got my hyperbaric chamber in there, and then I have this red light therapy thing.
With stuff like the hyperbaric chamber, it's really hard to get access to. I actually haven't tried it before, and apparently it costs over $25,000 to even buy one. But just doing consistent meditation over the long run has been proven to increase gray matter in the brain, which can help you focus for longer periods of time. I would just say pick what you have access to, but even beyond stimulating your entire nervous system, it's important to think about the fuel that you're putting into your body, which leads me to the next principle, and that's to eat to optimize for brain focus. So if you imagine your body as a car, based on the fuel that you give it, the environment that it's in, it might run really smoothly or it might start breaking down. You have to make sure you're fueling your body, not just in terms of what you're eating, but also when you're eating and how much you're eating.
I don't see how you can be successful if you don't feel good, you don't feel focused, and you don't have energy. I don't see how you can get it done. I couldn't get anything done. And without this, I've struggled in the past to get a lot done. And once I figured this out, I've started getting a whole lot done. It's mind-blowing.
There are essentially 4 key parts to optimizing your diet for your brain. And the first is to just absolutely cut out everything that wrecks your focus. And I found that just cutting out these 2 completely transformed my ability to concentrate. And that is to quit sugar and alcohol. Studies have shown that with alcohol, it takes 2 weeks for your brain to go back to normal after being intoxicated. So you're not just paying for it the next day, but also weeks afterwards. And every time you eat sugar, you're also spiking your glucose, which just makes it really hard for you to return back to baseline and enter that state of flow. If you're in a period where you're really trying to focus, then it's worth cutting out your sugar and alcohol intake completely. Another thing that we often overlook is having electrolytes, which help fuel the brain. And it can really just be adding salt to your water. If you listen to the Huberman Lab podcast, he often talks about that a lot.
Neurons run on salt, sodium, and potassium, and magnesium, the so-called electrolytes.
For me, I use these packets of electrolytes, and I definitely do feel a difference in the mornings. And the third is actually quite important and took me a while to get this. But similar to the gas in our cars, for optimal usage, we have to make sure we're adding the same type of fuel every time. So with your diet, you pretty much want to do the same thing. So you want to keep it clean with unprocessed food, and you also just want to try to roughly eat the same thing every day. If you're having a wildly variable caloric intake and you're also eating at random times every day, then you'll find that your energy levels and focus will also fluctuate a lot based around when you actually eat. So the third thing is to eat roughly the same thing at the same time every single day. Lately, I've just been eating Brian Johnson's Super Veggie along with some meat and eggs.
What is it looking appetizing?
It's like doing blue green.
And I found that that's been pretty useful for giving me clean energy. But the fourth key to optimizing your diet for focus is actually an interesting psychological hack that I found to increase my motivation when working. And that's to only eat carbs when you're done with work. Since carbohydrates are the most satiating form of macronutrients, I found that delaying my carb intake to after getting my work done to be really motivating.
Carbs. Chipotle kids meal.
You've probably experienced feeling really tired after a big meal. And a part of the reason for that is just because your body has to process those carbohydrates. And so delaying that until after you finish the hardest task of the day can really help you focus. Lately, I've also found that eating most of my carbs in my last meal has also dramatically improved my sleep, which leads me to the next principle, and that's to biohack your sleep. Ever since I met Brian Johnson and saw that it was actually possible to get 100% sleep scores every single night, I've been super obsessed with trying to optimize my sleep. But Alex Becker actually has some sleep tips that I haven't seen anybody talk about.
Most entrepreneurs have trouble sleeping is because we are constantly messing with our health.
Basically, he sees sleep as an optimization problem. And he says that 95% of the problems that you might have with sleep are because of overstimulation, lack of routine, and also light. These are the 4 most impactful changes that you can do to improve the quality of your sleep. The first is to understand that your circadian rhythm is dictated by when you view sunlight, which means you can actually train when you feel sleepy and when you feel alert. I use blue light blocking glasses at night and this super bright light in the morning when I wake up. I made a separate video about this concept in depth, which I'll link in the description, but the first tip is to use light to train your sleep. And the second is to not only have a sleep and wake time, but to create a whole structure and schedule based around your sleep. And so that includes the time you view light, the time you stop viewing light, when you exercise and eat. These are all signals to your brain when to feel sleepy and when to feel awake. The third is to create a sleep oasis. You probably already know how important it is to sleep in a cold room, not have any light, and reduce the sound. But another aspect that he optimizes for that I didn't really think about was the idea of safety. What pretty much happens is that if your subconscious feels that it's not entirely safe for you to fall asleep, it'll be harder for you to have deep sleep and even fall asleep. So even small things like having a lock on the door can be really helpful in just having that psychological shift. And the fourth tip is actually kind of interesting because I haven't seen anyone talk about this before. So a lot of experts have talked about how it's really harmful to watch television or to use your computer late at night. But for him, he still wanted to find a way that he could watch and enjoy content near his bedtime. So he actually found a way to do it without any negative impact to his sleep. And that's to just listen to audio only.
Okay. So what I do is I'll watch CEO interviews or I'll watch Family Guy to go to bed. Before bed is I'll put this Flux app on there. It removes all the blue light coming from the screen. Just doing that, massive effect on sleep.
I started doing this as well, where near my bedtime, I'll start listening to podcasts or videos. And I found that there's actually no negative impact to my sleep at all. What I think is really cool is that he kind of sees his body like a character in a video game, where he kind of needs to continually upgrade himself to get to where he wants to go. And all these little biohacks are just things he's found along the way to boost his focus so that he can get more work done. I think oftentimes when we're not super mindful of our routines, we assume that the best way to get more work done is to work for longer hours, which often means sacrificing our health, relationships, and time. If we actually just increase the efficiency that we work, we can actually get there in less amount of time and not sacrifice any of those things. One of the key ways to do that is to train your brain to focus on one problem at a time. And you probably already know how distracting social media and video games are. But the problem with social media and video games is not just the time that you're wasting. Even when you're not using it, your subconscious is still solving and thinking about those problems in the background. When I used to play video games, I found that even when I'm not playing it, my brain's still thinking of different strategies and coming up with solutions for the future.
When you're playing video games, even part-time, it hijacks that part of your brain that allows you to get to that point where you're going to get those maximum returns. You're going to be instead sitting around thinking about how to win at Super Smash Bros.
If you see your brain as a computer with limited RAM, then you pretty much want to quit all the apps so you can run the one you want as efficiently as possible. But there's also another advantage to quitting social media and video games, and that is it creates silence. So even though your subconscious is in the background solving problems that you're working on, you actually need to give it space and silence to capture those ideas.
You'll sit around and then you'll just have these ideas. Your whole idea for your business, the first thing you ever got into, the first thing you ever bumped into, it was this void.
And you often hear creatives saying this, where like an idea came to them in the shower or when they're going on for a walk. And that's because in those times, their brain isn't bombarded with a lot of information.
When you're constantly checking your phone, you constantly have audiobooks playing in your ear, you need to have some quiet time. When you're constantly watching TV, you're never actually alone. You materialize the things that are being pulled out of the void, but you also don't have any quiet time to focus on those things.
You're giving enough space for your brain to generate new ideas and to make sure that you're focusing on the right thing. Personally, I found that daily walks and meditation to be really impactful for increasing my levels of focus. But even if you increase your ability to focus, one big problem is that you often see people burning out. One of the superpowers that Alex Becker basically has is that he has never burned out, sticking to this routine for the past 10 years. And you'll notice this pattern among really successful entrepreneurs where people at the top of their game, they don't really burn out. And that's because of this next principle. That is to create a purpose.
If you don't find fulfillment and purpose from what you're doing, it's almost impossible to hit those levels. People look at Bill Gates. They see him working 15, 16-hour days. You see people like Elon Musk doing the same. You think either something's wrong with them or they just have something you do. No, they just have purpose. Anybody's capable of doing this.
If you deliberately create a focus, it makes it easier for your brain to understand why it's doing the things that it's doing. And so the friction naturally goes away. And the bigger the purpose you can set, the more you can focus for longer periods of time. For example, people like Elon Musk define a purpose for himself that takes literally decades to accomplish. And he truly believes that he's impacting the world in a better way. And that just makes it easier for him to work on these really hard problems without feeling burnt out or even giving up.
Think back to those moments in your life where you could do something for 12, 15 hours straight. That will tell you your kind of personality type. And you need to find a business, you need to find a goal that ties in with that type of work. That's going to allow you to unlock that Bill Gates sleep under the desk kind of mentality. That's how I've unlocked it. If I do anything else that I don't find fulfillment in or purpose in, I am terrible at it. I'm literally the worst in the world.
For me, I'm really passionate about sharing the things I've learned on this YouTube channel. And so it becomes really easy for me to spend long periods of time every day learning how to make videos, researching, filming without feeling burnt out. The next principle might be a little bit extreme for some people, but it depends on the level of focus that you want to achieve. Even if you implement just half of the ones I already mentioned, you'll find that your levels of focus will have dramatically improved. But if you have really big goals that you want to achieve, then this next principle is really crucial for you to implement. And that is to live like a monk. That's pretty much how he describes his own life.
You might have noticed I became a super minimalist. I own literally nothing. I don't even have a couch. I don't have anything. There's nothing in my house. It's literally just an empty room and a desk I'm in right now, and I own a bed.
And at times I think it might be even a little bit extreme, but you can't really argue with the results that he's achieved. He actually made a house tour video and it literally looks like nobody lives there. At times it kind of reminds me of a psychopath.
Well, I have 2 knives and then plastic forks. And this yellow knife is actually really important. I couldn't get by without this thing. I used to cut boxes and cut food, cut literally everything. It's the most important, it's one of the most important items in the entire house.
It makes it so he has nothing to do at home except to focus on the one thing he wants to achieve, which is something I'm trying to do right now because my main focus right now is to really grow this YouTube channel. And a big part of living like a monk is to try and do the same things every day, which removes decision fatigue. So that's like doing the same workout, eating the same thing, and maybe even wearing the same thing.
I have a jacket, I have 3 shirts, I have 3 pairs of pants, and then I have 2 pairs of shoes. I wear the same hoodie, the same pair of pants, the same tank top every single day.
That way you don't have to spend your brain power on deciding what to eat today, what to wear, or even deciding what's the best thing to buy. It's why Elon Musk sold all his belongings and decided to live in a small apartment. It's to optimize for focus and to achieve the single goal that he has right now. Personally, I've implemented everything here along with everything I learned from Brian Johnson. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, you can watch it here. I'll see you there. Bye.